Hey, what's up, Box in One World? We're back for another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about the Jays. But first, before we get into that, I wanted to talk a little bit of Raptors. We haven't necessarily spent a lot of time on the Raptors lately and discuss the topic of tanking, because this is something that when the Raptors started to struggle, a lot of people thought that, perhaps it made a little bit more sense for them to better their draft position. In the grand scheme of things, what's the better approach? How do you guys feel in general about tanking? And so we'll talk about a few different things tanking related. The Raptors are 5-5 in their last 10 games. They're 10th in the playoffs, in the playoff race right now, which gets them into the play-in game. But I mean, in the grand scheme of things, do you believe that tanking would have probably helped them looking forward to the future? Or, do you just, is it one of those things where you find it's really hard to kind of tell people, we're not playing for anything this year, just stop trying?
Yeah, I don't know how you tell a group of people who've won a championship just a couple of years ago that, we're going to tank. It's kind of hard. I really don't see them doing much, even if they sneak into the playoffs, first round exit maybe, because they haven't shown the kind of consistency you would expect them, that would make you think that they'll make a run in the playoffs. So I would hope they tank, or at least, try and get a slightly higher draft pick or something. But I think playoffs shouldn't really be a concern this year for Raptors.
I agree. The Chicago Bulls, who they're competing with for the 10 seed, has been hit with COVID. So they have guys that are out due to protocols. So that may actually get them into the play-in game, or the play-in tournament, I should say, which, I mean, yeah, I would rather have just, they're an organized, they just need to get some depth, get some athletes back, rebuild. They don't need to do a full rebuild, but they need to just get some more talent in there. So I would have, I think long-term for the organization, not getting in this year is the best thing to do. Now, in reality, they're playing better, but they are actually not playing a lot of, they're being very conservative with a lot of their core guys, sitting them with minor ailments. There is a talk around the NBA as well that the scheduling is so compressed that a lot of GMs and trainers are really concerned that this schedule, with just the lack of just this whole distorted season at the schedule and the COVID testing and everything, is just opening the door to a lot of injuries as well, soft tissue things, sprains, strains, all that. So I could see the Raptors not just saying that, hey, you know what, let's just not play these guys. I mean, Lowry's missed a lot of time. Siakam, OG recently, Fred, they sat down with relatively minor ailments that I'm sure if they were in a position where they could, a legitimate top 4 seed playing for positioning, they probably would be playing through it.
For sure.
Flip side is that, and I read this, that if you guys like yesterday, Paul Watson and Yuta go off, those guys don't care about the Raptors. They're trying to get contract for next year. So they're going to go out and play hard. And if they're beating teams by doing that, beating bad teams that are also tanking, you can't hold it against them. So let the chips fall where they may. And if you're in a play-in tournament and get into the first round, then maybe try to get some minutes for at least maybe the Malakis or the Kim Birches or the Boucher, the guys that you want to get a good look at in these situations, and maybe you can, where you may lose on the pick, you can gain in the development.
I've been very back and forth on the topic all season. Early on, probably around when we had Blake Murphy on, I definitely thought what we were seeing was just some early season struggles as a result of some of the displacement of the guys on the team and all that. But I figured they turn it around, and they did, until All-Star break was when they had all the COVID issues, and things just went downhill from there. And that's when I kind of just took the stance of the season is lost. Let's just give it up. Let's see what we can do in terms of getting ourselves a better draft spot. But then, the more you think about it, and just in the grand scheme of things, and looking beyond the Raptors and just tanking in general, it's one of those things where when you have guys on, like you said, Primate or Azam, when you have guys who are a couple years removed from competing for a championship, and you have guys who there are some skilled guys outside of the ones that have been hurt. It's a difficult thing to say, hey, you got to stop trying. We're not going to win these games. And like, who's that message going to come from? I don't see that ever coming from Nurse or Masai.
But I don't know if they ever, even if a team's deliberately tanking, no one comes out with a message saying we're not trying, right? You just put players in a position where they can't win.
Development.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly. Like if that's what I'm saying. So like you have guys on this roster that don't fit that idea of tanking. So you can't say it to them because you wouldn't say it. It's got to be the way Philly did it when Brian Colangelo was the GM. Or actually, was it pre-Colangelo?
Hinky.
Yeah, it was right
near the end of that.
Right. But so some of those rosters were some of the worst rosters that I'd ever seen assembled, maybe since the inaugural Raptors. Like that's the way you do it. That's the way you tank. It's assembling those pieces who are, fringe pieces would probably belong in the G League rather than some of the guys who the Raptors have. The good thing that has come out of this, and one of the things that I wanted to see, was letting guys like Malachi Flynn play. So, there's a positive that he's gotten some playing time, and similar to where the Jays were last year, where you let some young guys play and things end up kind of working in the right direction, working in your favor, and maybe you can get some of those guys a little bit of playoff experience, even if it is just in the play-in tournament. But it's something where they're playing in higher stakes games.
Yep. I mean, if that comes, if we get in, then just play to win once you're there, right? And I think that like Nurse in a coaching against Nurse in a playoff round is a very different kind of animal, because that's where he'll. And if you have guys relatively healthy at that point, they could make some. Even if they get past the play-in tournament, right as it stands now, they've matched up against Miami, and I think Miami is a better team right now. And they're very well coached as well. But let's say they played Philly in round one. Even if Philly would be the favorite, and rightfully so, and they'd probably win, I could see just Nurse's coaching stealing a couple of games in that series.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I always think about. It's if you tank, you kind of take away that ability to they could sneak in after winning a playoff, like winning the playoff tournament. They could sneak in, play somebody, and maybe they catch somebody who's injured. It kind of that's always the I think the negative side of the potential tanking when you have some quality players on your team. It's that you could take away the potential for that Cinderella run, I guess you would call it. There's I always love to create those scenarios in my head where it's like, oh, what if this happened? What if they make it to the finals? Unlikely, but if you take that stance of we're just gonna develop players and we're not gonna try to win these games, you take away the potential for that to happen.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, right? Like this, I don't remember. Maybe Rod Laver was a former tennis player who once said,
"Yeah,
I really never want to give up because you never know if the lightning strikes and hit the opponent, right?" So,
yeah,
I guess it's one of those things. And truth be told, even if let's say they make it, now that you mentioned it, they have enough pieces who can still probably benefit from that playoff, playing in those playoff games, even if they make an exit in the first round. They have enough guys who can probably benefit from that experience, right? Like,
yeah. I guess the question comes down to, is that those extra games for like a Flynn, Trent, even Boucher, although he's older. He doesn't really have a lot of playoff experience. Is that worth more than drafting a few spots higher?
So that's another question I want to ask you, because we're talking about these guys getting. What do you guys make of Freddie's? Like, they're re-upping him for another 10-day contract, I think, right? Raptors.
Oh, Freddie Gillespie?
Freddie Gillespie, yeah.
I love it. To be honest with you, since him and Birch have been inserted into the lineup, you can really see that, like, you know, having Aaron Baines in the lineup, as opposed to, like, now that you have these guys, it's a completely different dynamic. There's more switchability with a guy like Gillespie and a guy like Kem Birch. They give you something more offensively. Like, if you think about all the, you know, all the plays that Aaron Baines is involved in, you know, typically it's he sets a screen, he flares out to the 3-point line, and then gives you that little like 1950s jumper from the top of the key. Like, these guys give you a little bit more. They give you more athleticism, and the rebounding that both of these guys give you has just completely changed the team. And like, I don't want to overstate what's been going on, because, like, you know, it's a run of like a few games, so it could just be a case where, you know, they're just energized coming into a new team. But I love the fact that, you know, they re-up Gillespie because he's something that they've been missing, and same with Birch.
Yeah, and he's worth another look, right? And again, if it can solve your number 5 problem a little bit, then why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think that their perspective is that had we just gotten they'd probably be a much closer to a 500 team had they just gotten a few extra rebounds.
Yeah.
And Baines, when he's on the court, they've been awful, like just atrocious. And let's call a spade a spade. He's been terrible. I don't want to pile on the guy any more than everybody already has. But I think it's good for him that they were playing in Tampa and not Toronto this year, because he would have gotten booed every time he touched the floor. So just not play, and they're generally with him off the floor, they were a much more efficient offensive and better defensive team, even if they weren't getting closing possessions and getting at least they were missing rebounds, but that's because the other team was missing shots. So a missed rebound is the result of a missed shot or a bad shot attempt. So they weren't closing the possessions, but they had possessions that they could close. So I think, yeah, with Birch and Freddie, it's just a matter of just getting guys that are a little more athletic, just can get up, get those boards. And in fairness to Baines, I didn't know this before, but apparently he had COVID in the offseason and was hit pretty hard. So we don't know what this impact is on him, like on an athlete. Like, we saw the challenges that guys like Siakam and Fred and all of them coming out of the COVID protocols. I mean, just we don't know everybody who had it and who didn't have it. There's an impact there. I mean, it's just and I was reading that it also slowed down their miles per hour and total miles covered per game just on foot. So just like extra little bit of energy to close out on a 3-point shot wasn't there, and maybe they're just having a little more energy and just getting those extra few boards, and that's making them look a little better.
Yeah, and with a guy like Baines, like if you're a half a step slower, you know, when you're probably already a step slow, it's difficult. And like, to be honest with you, people, like, it's easy to pile on Baines. Like, I think he was put in a bad position. I honestly believe that the front office thought they were going to get somebody else in addition to Baines. I don't, you know, I think it came to a point where they had to kind of sell him as the solution in the front court, but I don't think that was ever the intent. Like, he has a role on this team. It's not as a starter, and I've always said this. As a bench guy, I don't mind him, but when you thrust him into that role and having to cover the pick and rolls and having to do some things that you can tell he's clearly not comfortable with, it's not what he's built for. And that's why, like, I'm glad that they brought in a couple of guys who, you know, kind of fit that mold of the athletic big that I think some of us wanted them to get in the offseason, and some of us wanted to see come in through maybe a trade or, you know, in the buyout market. But, you know, they did it. I think they did it the right way. They got themselves some value out of, like, you know, guys who, you know, were kind of afterthoughts, I guess, especially in the case of Gillespie, because, I mean, they picked him up on a 10-day to see what he had. And I think he's like the third or fourth big man that they picked up on a 10-day. And I'm kind of glad they didn't settle on some of the earlier ones. Like I liked Henry Ellenson, but he's a little bit slower than what what Gillespie is, and definitely Gillespie's a better rebounder.
Yeah, and it's not as if Baines, he's already like 34, I think. So I mean, you weren't gonna he is who he is, right?
He was a placeholder, and
Yeah, exactly.
he has two roles, three jobs: get dunks, set screens, and rebound the ball. And he didn't. Unfortunately, he didn't do any of them well. So, yeah. I mean, there's nothing. I don't think it's due to lack of effort, but I mean, given his age and COVID, and when it goes, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned his age. When somebody told me that a few weeks ago, I never realized he was that old. For some reason, I thought he was like late 20s.
Me too. Yeah.
Was it on the podcast that we discussed this?
Maybe it was.
Yeah, because I remember. I think.
Yeah. Like it's crazy that he's as old as he is. Because did he come over into the league late? I'm just trying to remember. Like his career.
26, maybe. He was like 26 or 27 when he came into the league because from Australia. So I don't know if he spent time in Europe or what, but yeah, he was older when he came over for sure.
Yeah, that explains it because he's been around for a while, but like he definitely hasn't been around that long. All right, so I think that's a good place to end it off with the Raptors talk. But I mean, let's see where the season goes. Whatever we get out of this, like ideally, I would prefer a high draft pick. But if we see a magical run, then it is what it is. I need some happiness at this time.
Yeah, me too.
There are some good athletic wing guys. It's not a real, unless they get to 2 with Evan Mobley. It's not really a big man draft, but a lot of good athletic wings. So you get somebody in the top 10 that's like just really good. Like it can make a difference. I mean, it's now the league is really, if you have a really good wing player like that, not so much that big or that guard, but that small forward with the body and the athleticism, that's huge in this league now. Yeah,
and there's a lot of those guys where it's like the problem with this draft is outside of the top 5, it's a lot more of a crapshoot. The top 5 are definitely, and that's what I was hoping for, to be completely honest with you. I wanted a top 5 pick, so I wanted like all out tank, just sit everybody. If anybody's a little bit hurt, he's sitting, because I wanted a guy like Mobley because I think Mobley would fit in well. But that would be like, there are so many, there's a few bad teams that at the time where we started struggling with COVID, I think there were a few teams that were even below us. So like it would have taken some work on our part to get down there. But there are some, like, even if we end up somewhere in the lottery, there are some good athletic guys that might be able to turn into something. It's just, we'd have to rely heavily on our player development, which we've talked about in the past. And the Raptors are really good at developing guys. So, that it might not be a bad move, but I mean, ideally we would get Mobley, but that's just, that's perfect world.
Yeah, but top 5 is going to be a massive undertaking right now, like even based on where they are. So they've killed. Their development can really help. If you get something in the top 10, you can still make something out of it.
Yeah, they killed the top 5 dream with their run in the last 10 games. Like being 5-5 in the last 10, that's pretty much taken us out of that conversation. So it's just a lottery pick at most right now, which is fine. Like there's, like I said, there's some guys with some talent, and I think they can turn somebody into something like we've seen so many times before. Speaking of talented teams and turning young guys into players, let's turn our attention to the Blue Jays. Primate, they're playing right now, aren't they?
They're winning 2-0. End of the third, so third inning's over.
Mats is throwing a no-hitter. I mean, it's only 3 innings, but you can say that, right?
Yeah, you just jinxed it. You just jinxed it. You shouldn't have said it.
Mats has pitched really well for them.
He's pitched really well. Yeah.
Spring. Yeah, but you have to take spring training stats with a grain of salt. But so far, he's been really good.
But let's talk about that, because I think that was the biggest concern that we all had. The starting pitching hasn't looked bad so far.
It's been I mean, outside of Ryu and Mats and one Robbie Ray start, it's been a little dicey.
But is it as bad as it could have been? Because when you looked at some of these names early on, like I was expecting just like complete catastrophe.
They got lucky a couple of games, I'll be honest. I think TJ Zoic in that first start against the Yankees, there were a lot of loud outs. He lucked out. Tanner Roark came as advertised for this year. Unfortunately, I feel bad for the guy. It doesn't seem like things will get better for him. But yeah, I mean, it's been a mixed bag right now.
As Azam said, Ryu and Mats have been great. Robbie Ray, one good start. So that's so far so good. What's interesting about Mats is that there aren't any drastic changes. I'm just looking at his last few years in terms of fastball usage, slider usage, a little bit more slider usage than last year, but nothing has drastically changed. But there is a little bit more velocity. So I'm just wondering if on his fastball, a little less on his sliders. I'm just wondering if he's just healthy. But I'm looking at there's nothing really has changed. So I mean, is he going to be a Cy Young candidate? No. Is he going to be a good mid-rotation starter for them? Probably. But
I think if I get 3.5, 4 ERA, I'll be happy.
Yeah. The biggest concern is the injuries. I mean, Merriweather, Romano. I mean, we lost Yates before, but that's a little different because he was a high-risk acquisition to begin with. I mean, Springer hasn't played yet. I'm missing a bunch of guys. We've lost Chatwood.
Hernandez, Teoscar.
Teoscar was due to COVID, but yeah. So, and I know that there's more bodies. Is that where?
Yeah, and the thing is that even though the starting pitching was a little dicey, there was some depth at AAA. That's getting really tested now because a lot of these guys are getting hurt and losing both your quote-unquote closer and a setup guy. Bullpen's going to get stretched a little bit as well. I mean, Tommy Malone starting the second game of the doubleheader today, so that tells you they're pretty desperate right now. I mean, that's one, and then the other thing that's telling you is that they really do not trust Tanner Roark right now.
Oh, good God, no.
Why would you?
And
well, that's true, right? And I feel for the guy, right? I mean, he was supposed to be like a back-end rotation, like your 4 or 5, hasn't really panned out. But if you can't trust him against KC at Kauffman, I don't know why you're carrying him, to be very honest.
Ownership is saying we're paying the guy $12 million. Find a way to get something out of him before you cut him. That's probably what it is.
Tyler Chatwood's out too, actually. By the way,
yeah, Chatwood's out. Hatch has been out, and he could have been a good arm for them as well. Yeah, Nate Pearson, obviously. It's just which also is another question of is there something going on with the training, the way the training staff, the way they're being worked? Is there something that we're not that's a problem, or is this just a matter of pitchers get hurt and they're just coming all at once? We're not close enough to the situation to know that for sure, but I think it's a question that could be asked.
Yeah, and I guess we got to see what ends up happening with those guys and see if this keeps happening throughout the season. I mean, it might just be a run of bad luck, but yeah, you're right. There could be something more to it. What's Pearson's status? When is he expected to be back?
Well, it's indefinite right now. He's throwing off a mound. Last time they said, or I think he himself said that they're trying to tweak something mechanically a little bit. So, I mean, one way to read that is maybe they are concerned that how he throws, he is a little bit more injury prone, just to try to make it less violent. So, I mean, if he's doing that, he's trying to make a tweak or an adjustment.
Has there ever been a guy that throws 100 consistently that hasn't had injury issues?
Scherzer?
Does he throw 100 consistently now?
I mean, not now. I mean, but he did throw 100 at one point.
He
was around in the high 90s for sure.
Learn how not to throw 100. That's the. I mean, I think a lot of these guys just sometimes it's just crazy. They just do it. They think it's so easy without really understanding the stress that it causes on your body. And a lot of times you may not feel it until it just goes. You remember how Dwayne Casey used to talk about pound the rock, that 99 times you pound the rock, nothing happens. You think you're you're not damaging the rock. But the 100th time, it just collapses. Well, this is like you're applying that same example to your arm. Like you could think, oh, nothing's happening, everything's good, and then snap.
So are you calling for Casey to be in a dugout somewhere in the suit?
Oh God, no. But like I'm looking at Scherzer now. His fastball average velocity is 93.6 this year.
And he's 36 as well.
Yeah, but even like in his Detroit days, 93, 94, 93 was his average velocity. So he could get it to 100, but he didn't just like throw it. He wasn't like averaging high 90s consistently. He was.
What about Verlander?
Verlander? Very interesting. I would suspect he's older now. He had the Tommy John now, but
I remember at one point he threw 100 to finish the 8th inning.
yeah, he could. He was there, but he's a little higher, average in the 93 to 95 range. He's never averaged more than 95.6, and that's when in 2009.
Okay.
So he could, if need. I think those guys are, and it's easier said than done, obviously. But those guys probably learned to save it when needed, and they learn how to get guys out without maxing out their velocity.
And I guess that's the key for some of these, for young athletes in general. Like even in basketball or whatever the case is, sometimes you just have to learn to save yourself for when you actually need it and not overexert yourself all the time. And I'm sure that's probably hard as a pitcher who can, who's got a flamethrower for an arm to not just rear back every time and throw 100. But I mean, that's probably the most important thing to longevity. It's learning how to, it's not just throwing and throwing hard. It's learning how to pitch.
Absolutely.
And you can't blame them. We can sit here and say, well, it's not because you don't think you're doing anything. You don't think it's causing any stress. And you're like, oh my God, I'm blowing these guys away. Like it's hard to change, right? It's like muscle memory. And the ball still, it's like throwing a changeup, right? Because you have to have the exact same arm action as a fastball, so the hitter will not detect what's coming. And that's really, really hard to do.
So not that this is the same in any way, but I remember when I was working for the Raptors and we used to throw those T-shirts into the stands, I would try to launch them up into the upper deck every time. And my arm was fine all the time and now this is a T-shirt and it's not a baseball. But I remember launching one really far as I could, and I felt something in my shoulder and my elbow, and to this day, my arm is done. I can't throw at all anymore.
Sure.
Yeah, but definitely not the same as throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball in a major league game. Yeah, just wanted to give myself some credit for being able to launch it into the stands.
Definitely not the same.
What was your launch angle?
I don't know. I don't know if they had that kind of technology in those days.
On that note, we were talking about it, so I just want to appreciate what Max Scherzer has been doing. Like he's now he just passed Cy Young in MLB strikeout leaders. I think by the time this season's done, he'll be top 20 all time. Incredible career, and what's even amazing is that when Washington gave him that big contract at the age of 31, they've gotten their money's worth. Like they've really gotten their money's worth.
Is he the first starter that got a long-term 7-year deal, starting pitcher that just didn't have any sort of significant injury problems, or just like blow out at some point during the contract? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head that hasn't happened to.
Especially when it's a free agent contract and not an extension.
Yeah, like a free agent after 30. He's the first.
Like his first year with Washington was his age 30 year.
Yeah. Like Strasburg last year barely pitched 5 innings, done. After he got his extension after 2019 when they won the World Series. So we'll see how he holds up. He's another guy they gave a long-term deal to. He's in year 2 of a 7-year deal, and he's going to be 33 this year. We'll see how that.
So this is Scherzer's 7th year. First 5 years, he posted 32.5 in win above replacement. So 32.5, that's an average of what, 6.5 WAR every year for 5 years. Last year it was 1.8 in just 67 innings. So that probably could have been close to 4.5, 5. So just absolutely incredible of a career.
He's going to the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame. He's at 64 now.
He can actually go in Hall of Fame as a Washington National if you actually look at his career.
Yeah, if he wants to. And why? Like, he won the World Series here.
34 out of 60 WAR in Washington.
And his Washington numbers, because like even in Detroit, he didn't really break out, and he had a pretty good 2010 year, 11 okay-ish, but really 12, 13, 14 are where he really established himself as a frontline guy. So Washington would make sure he's had a much better career in Washington and a longer career when all is said and done. Actually, yeah, he's been in Washington longer now than he has been in Detroit. So
yep,
it would make sense to go in as a national.
But back to Jays, I mean, injuries aside, pitching being a bit of a question mark. I mean, the good thing is how Bichette and Vlad are hitting right now. So again, very early in the season, but you'd rather see them hit than not hit, right? And Vlad's been scorching hot, and
Gritchick has hit well, streaky. He's a streaky hitter for sure, but he's hit well. Still a few concerns. I mean, just Danny Jansen. I was hoping that when I say breakout, just be a serviceable hitter, and that hasn't happened at all. So, and he'd always been a pretty good hitter when he was in the minors. And even in 2018, when he came up, he did okay off like 347 on base for a catcher. So, but we're getting to the point with him that you need to start getting some kind of offense on. He can't, otherwise he's going to become a career backup.
Yeah, because his defense is good enough to keep him in the leagues for a long time.
Yeah. Kirk, as much as everybody, Ron included, love him. He hasn't, not a lot of at-bats yet. It's early, but there hasn't been much. And
he hit his first home run, though.
He did. I just think it's way too early in his career. He came out of nowhere. I always question these guys when they come up. So
don't they have another catcher, another catching prospect, like just kind of waiting?
Couple.
Sorry, who?
Gabriel Moreno is there.
Yeah.
But he's still a while. He's not imminent.
Where is he? Is he double A or?
He's good. He's in triple A. He's in triple A.
He's in triple A. He's supposed to be the main catching prospect, but I think they have Riley Adams as well, right?
Yeah, I think Keith Law has Moreno ahead.
Yeah.
But Moreno, like in 2019, he was in Lansing, which is mid A. So now he was in their alternate site last year. And now they're putting him in triple A, which is great. But he may need a good, the art of catching. He may need a couple of good. He may just be in AAA out of necessity, or like the art of catching. He may need to just get there and just stay there for a year or two.
So that's the interesting thing about last year when there was no minor league baseball and a lot of these guys were at the alternate training site. It seems that I'd like to know a little bit more how it was structured, because it seems that players ended up facing tougher competition, maybe because you were facing players from different levels. But it seemed like Jays are a lot more comfortable pushing a lot of these guys up a lot faster than they would have done had they just gone through a regular season. Look at Kirk, look at Moreno, look at a lot of these guys, even Jonathan Davis. He's been around with the team for a while, but they really loved his work at the alternate site. Josh Palacios, there's a lot of guys who've done very well, it seems, or whatever they did at the alternate site seemed to have worked, that they feel comfortable that they can push these guys up a level or two up faster than they would have done in normal circumstances.
Yeah, so I think this is just my own theory. There are limits as to how many players you could have. So teams would have brought their best prospects. So maybe there's placing the best guys, whereas when you're in the minor leagues, there's a lot of players that just have no hope in making it to the majors. You're facing a lot of bad competition in the minors as well. Maybe just like having those simulated games against tougher competition and working out and developing with your elite prospects help push the development process forward.
And that's a fair point. And maybe there is something to shrinking the minor league that MLB decided to go out. Like, I mean, there were a lot of levels, and call it nostalgia or just the fact that there are small towns that may rely a lot on the economies. So it's a little bit unfair on that end, but maybe there was something, right? There's you can see why MLB probably wanted to shrink a couple of levels.
Yeah, it really seemed like, and this is looking at it from like, a soccer and basketball perspective, but from what I've seen, like it just seemed like MLB teams, they're really slow to bring guys along. And I can see sometimes why, but at the same time, like, I don't know, isn't there something to be said for just, figuring it out when you're at a higher level and working your way into being a good player?
Well, their service time.
No, but you know what? You have to make changes to that. Sorry to cut you off. Because if there's a player who's playing two sports in college, like let's take Kyler Murray's example, right?
Yeah.
Why would he choose baseball and play through 2-3 years in the minor league when he can play NFL right away?
Yeah.
Like you've got to start thinking about this a little bit more, right?
Yeah. And Primate, I know what you're saying about service time, but I'm not saying like necessarily bring them up to the majors and let a guy who was just drafted like go into the majors. I'm just saying like it just seemed like you have to go through A ball and then double A and then sometimes it just takes a long time, and I can see why. Like you want to make sure that with some of these prospects that you're taking the time that they're learning to play correctly, and pitching is difficult. Like I don't know that there's an equivalent in any other type of sport where seeing a pitch, a type of pitch for the first time, or like when you're dealing with 100-mile-an-hour fastball and somebody who can really control it, but then can like slow it down on you and throw like 79. It's tough for a young hitter to adjust to. So I get that, but like sometimes it seems like it takes forever for somebody to come up.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the service time issue. I think number 2 is like it's national. It's all like again minor league cities, economies. Like it's America's national
right.
Time. So you have a lot of teams and you have a lot of players, and you got to put them somewhere, which results in that. I think MLB is a little bit more of an individual sport. So whereas like other sports, you can hide guys. You have practices to develop them, and you can limit minutes. Like a young guy in the NBA can have you can control their minutes and work out with them practices. MLB doesn't have that model, so it's harder to develop at the major league level. But I mean, I agree. Like I really like. It makes a lot of sense to stream. Like there are too many levels. I really do believe that. They're just looking at it from a major league baseball operation. There are likely too many levels, and it makes a lot more sense to streamline that process and have more control over the player development process. So it makes a lot of sense. But on the flip side, we all know why it was done, and it was to save money. That's the real reason. It was it was financial more so than it just so happens.
Oh, for sure, it's definitely more financial.
Now it turns out that it could result in better player development because the league has more control over facilities and how the players are used with those teams. But,
so the one thing that really makes me sad, and I would have always wanted to do was go watch the Appalachian League and the Blue Jays. I'm having a brain freeze. I'm forgetting the team name, but the ground is so beautiful. Bluefield, yes. That's one, and John Lott, he wrote a lot about it, and whenever he visited. But I mean, they could have thrown a bunch of money and probably fixed the problem. But even then, I think at least one layer probably would have been redundant, right? Based on where we are today. So
The funniest thing I ever heard on a Jays talk, this is way back, like over 10 years ago, when Mike Wilner, some guy called in, and he was and it was after the season, and Adam Lind was on, and he was taking questions from the fans. And some guy called in, he's like, yeah, minor league baseball is great value for the price. Like, you can see an entertaining game, and it's much, much cheaper than going to the majors. So he asked Adam Lind, like, so what's the biggest difference between the competition in the minors and the majors? And Adam was like, they're all better. What else do you want me to say? They're better. Yeah. What do you want? They're stronger, faster, throw harder, hit harder. Everybody's better in the majors. That's the difference. So it's just sometimes funny how like these people try to overthink simple things.
Exactly. Absolutely. Jonathan Davis just hit another solo home run, so Jays are up 3-0.
Yeah, and to that, we talked about this on our WhatsApp group chat. So I believe Jonathan Davis, he's not really a prospect anymore. He's 28 or 29. I believe he should be on this roster over Rowdy Tellez when the time comes to make that decision.
What about Josh Palacios now? Because it seems like he's falling behind him in the pecking order. And he's made a couple of boneheaded errors on the base path.
Yeah. I remember when he got caught leaning. I think it was a few games ago. He got caught leaning when he was on. He got brought in. I think they brought him in to pinch run, right? And he got caught leaning, and it looked like he completely wasn't paying attention, and he got thrown out.
Full disclosure, I know who he is. I don't know his defensive ability well. Can Palacios play a good center field?
We haven't. He's played center field. He's been adequate, I think.
Can it be easy? Yeah. So here's my take: is that Palacios could change things. I don't know for sure what his defensive, how he is defensively. I haven't read a lot about him, but my reasoning for Davis was, number one, despite his blunder and getting picked off, the whole extra innings starting a runner at second. So there's always going to be pinch running needs. While Grichuk is an adequate right center fielder, I think if you're likely going to have to use the DH spot for Springer a lot this year, just coming off those injuries and bringing him in slowly so Davis can provide a plus glove in center. So with the speed, the pinch running, the ability to play defense, certain ballparks that are just really harder to defend against, given that they do have some run prevention issues, that having a good, just if you really want to have play a game with a Grichuk, Springer, like Davis outfield, just for improved outfield defense, that's there as well. So he provides a lot of those capabilities that you have in a fourth or fifth outfielder. Now, Palacios, if he could do all those things just as well or better, maybe he's the guy instead with a better bat. I don't know. Like, he's had his minor league hitting numbers have been pretty solid. Like, his career minor league numbers are 288 with a 366 on base. He's had some years where he's had about 15 stolen bases. Maybe it's him. Maybe he plays that role instead. I don't know defensively, though, how he is, so I can't say with certainty. Like, I can't make a declaration as to who should stay, but he could be the one that stays instead. I don't see how Tellez fits in long term. He's not hitting enough. I think even last year, his 2-week hot streak was it was just a good 2 weeks in a shortened season, so it's weighted a lot more highly. And carrying a backup first baseman in this day and age, I don't see as much value in that.
So just to wrap things up, guys, looking at the Blue Jays and where they're going to end off the season, playoff team, not a playoff team, what do you guys think?
On the cusp, they could, if things go their way, but I think they're mid to high 80s team right now.
Yes, playoff wild card contender. They have it now. They have a deep enough system that if they want to go for it this year and make deadline deals, that they have the assets. Their most rankings have them as a top 5 farm system now. Keith Law, who I follow most closely, had them at number 3. So if they're close and they decide to make a push this year, they have the assets to acquire a starter that may become available. So, or even if they just want to do little nicks, they say, you know what, we're still young. We have a lot of, the core is locked up long term. Maybe if this year the starter we want isn't available, we can shore up some other areas and use our lesser prospects to do that and still make a decent run. So I wouldn't call them a frontline World Series contender yet, but they are a wild card team and they have a lot of flexibility and that they could go a lot of different. If they don't go for it this year, it's not the end of the world. They could make incremental improvements or they could swing hard.
Yeah, I think the important thing is that, there's definitely brighter days ahead for this club, and that they have a lot of young talent and they got some flexibility, like you said. So I definitely think there are positive days ahead. But I think that's a good place to wrap it up, guys. To our viewers, listeners, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening, watching. Make sure you hit the like button if you're watching us on YouTube. It really helps us out. Comment on our stuff. Let us know, like, if you want to get in contact with us, either on Instagram or Twitter. Just let us know if there's anything specific you want to hear or see. We'll probably be doing some more NBA Top Shot videos soon. If you haven't checked out the last one, we put up a pack opening. But thanks a lot for listening, watching. Subscribe to us on Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you listen to your podcast. We really appreciate the support.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.